After being unanimously confirmed, Secretary of State Marco Rubio immediately met with his so-called Quad counterparts from Australia, India, and Japan. That signals a focus of the new administration on China as a possible threat or adversary. Rubio also supervised a 90-day suspension of all foreign aid payments, but not to Ukraine. They're going to continue to get their weapons. In the Middle East, Trump said that he was not optimistic about the prospects for the new ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, and he eliminated Biden's sanctions against those West Bank settlers, there's like 16 of them, who were accused of violence against Palestinians that Biden imposed. Meanwhile, Israel appears to be taking advantage of the ceasefire to escalate its military attacks and encourage settler violence in Jenin and other places in the West Bank. Will Trump, a firm ally of Israel, be able to rein in his good buddy Bibi Netanyahu? Trump plans to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin during the next few weeks and says that they will discuss bringing an end to the Ukraine war. Most experts think Russia will wind up with about a fifth of Ukrainian territory and a guarantee that a rump Ukraine won't join NATO. You know, all the stuff that Russia wanted from the very beginning. Joining us is Nick Cruse. He's the host and co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network and a political commentator. Nick, thanks for joining us here on the TMI show.
Hey, what's popping, guys? Thanks for inviting me on. I saw your previous segment regarding the recent Trump pardon to have the Libertarian Party very excited. I see a lot of celebration on Twitter and X, and I was thinking like the contrast between the two parties couldn't be starker, where you have the Republicans and Trump that is actually reaching out to the Libertarians, and they have made a concerted effort to win over the Libertarian. What does it say that the Democratic Party, which is the professional losers party, there's no attempt to even reach out to the Green Party? Compare that to, I don't know that much about Ross. I will learn a lot during your segment. I know it was something that Libertarians fought hard for because he was a victim of the United States justice system as well. So it speaks volumes, and this is the real reason why the establishment hates Trump, because he's just so much better at this than they are. he just outmaneuvers them. And I tell that to people all the time who have Trump derangement syndrome in my family, my friends, which is legit. I think it's fair because he's a part of the ruling class and people are mistrustful of the ruling class. But whenever I see people who are like uniquely afraid, I was talking to some relatives that was because they know I talk about politics after Trump won. They was like, oh my God, Nick, come on, what we gonna do now that Trump won? I want to get your opinion. But I'm like, dude, nothing gonna change. You realize that Trump is just like Bill Clinton. He's just better. Like he runs circles around the current ruling class, and that's why they're really upset. And that's shown with this move here. And the move that Trump is making. Go ahead, Manila.
And then Nick, I'm with you because it's not like I'm a big fan of Trump or I think he walks on water, you know, the second coming of Jesus or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. But because of Trump derangement syndrome that's still ongoing again, and I was praying that the mainstream media wasn't going to do this in the second go around, that maybe they've, you know, would curtail it a little bit and learn from Trump 1.0 that this whole, you know, TDS, it would be over by now. It's not. And the point is, when people like you or me or others point out actual facts that he just outgamed the game, he outfoxed them, then they're like, oh, you're secret, you're an op, you like Trump, no, I just think a couple of things he's done is good, like this free Ross Ulbricht thing. I think that is a good thing when he is trying to make his position clear that he's going, he freeing Ross is symbolic of saying screw you to the Biden and Obama DOJ that unjustly applied the law and chased after him. That's what that looks like to me.
Yeah, and I'm still not really impressed by Trump. It's just clear that he's the best among them. I hated Trump in 2015. I hated Trump's guts, but Trump destroying Jeb Bush was easily the most satisfying thing to watch. And that was coming from someone who hated Trump. The whole time I was like, man, I hate this motherfucker, but he's killing it. And that's the reality of why the establishment, wherever How you would define? I would define like the centrist Democrats and the Republican neighbors, the establishment. That's the real reason why they hate Trump, because he is, at the end of the day, the game of politics. It's a jobs program for bourgeoisie rich kids. So if you're a rich kid, you got good connections. That seat, California District 2 is yours when you're.
That's right.
That's how it works. And Trump disrupted that game. But go ahead, Manila. That's why they
never forgave him. I think that's a great point. They never forgave him for vanquishing Jeb in the primaries and then in the finals vanquishing Hillary Clinton. Then they never forgave
Manila,
him.
it's not Jeb, it's Jeb. Remember?
Jeb.
There was
Jazz
an exclamation mark. Jeb.
But why was it Jeb with an exclamation mark, and yet Trump pointed out
mark says excitement. It signals excitement. You're automatically
low
excited.
energy Jeb.
Oh God, Trump saved the Republican Party so much because that was their genius marketing maneuvers back in the day. Jeb with an exclamation mark.
That was
so Trump saved them.
That's true.
That's true. Rebranding campaign. Yeah.
I mean, so Nick, let me ask you. I mean, it's been my impression that Donald Trump reflects and has brought about a dramatic realignment, especially in foreign policy, between the two bourgeois capitalist parties, right? That sort of like how, from 1928 to 1932, the Democrats and Republicans kind of switched places on a lot of stuff. And Democrats particularly have switched places on foreign policy, where they've become the more militaristic party. Used to, think about where we were under George W. Bush, where, he was starting wars right and left, and doing regime change that we've forgotten about in places like Venezuela and like, Georgia and places like Kyrgyzstan. And now, this guy ran for president in a Republican primary and won in 2016 as criticizing the Iraq war as stupid, and negotiated with the Taliban to pull out of Afghanistan. But how does he reconcile this sort of skepticism that he articulated during his inaugural address, where he said, I want to have a strong army, but I want to be judged by the wars we get out of and the wars that we never start in the first place? How does he reconcile that with his support for Israel, who are basically, maniacal warmongers? Now that things are cooling down in Gaza, they're like, all right, let's turn our eyes to the West Bank and destroy that too. I mean, how does he fix that?
He doesn't. Trump is a great marketer, and that's what makes him actually a dangerous threat to the working class, and why he's actually a great boon to the ruling class. And the Mike Johnsons, they understood that. The smartest among them understood that. And don't get me wrong, there was an initial push to get rid of Trump. And this coming from the J.D. Vance right. Remember J.D. Vance, who said Trump is the next Hitler? So there was an attempt because they thought they can ruin him. But then when that failed, the smartest among them realized what was going on. So J.D. Vance, I would say, is a very politically astute, just playing the rules of their game. Like, this is not my personal praise, but the rules of their game, J.D. Vance won. He's a young vice president, right? So he was the smartest among them. Yeah. So even though we don't like him, it's just a simple fact that based on the rules of our society, he's extremely successful. And the reason why that is because he was able to put his finger in the air and see where the tide is changing. And as we mentioned earlier, Jeb with an exclamation mark, they thought they were going to sweep to victory with that. So what Trump reminded them of is how politics in America is like WWE, and Trump was a part of WWE. Mm-hmm. It's all about marketing. He's in
the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he beat the shit out of Vince McMahon apparently.
Oh, he's got Linda McMahon in I don't know if it's a cabinet position, but in his administration.
Yeah. I think she's Secretary of Education or some shit.
Oh,
I forgot all about that.
No, really?
I'm gonna look that up.
Education?
Yeah, I mean it's like Idiocracy, I swear.
Yeah, imagine being Stone Cold Steve Austin. You stunned most of the executive branch at this point. But anyway, the point being,
this is Small Business Administration. My apologies.
Okay.
The Donald Trump understood that in
America, I lied. I was right. She's been nominated to lead the Department of Education.
Yeah, that's
WWE to lead education.
That's awesome.
Dude, and Linda McMahon knew everything that that Vince was doing. Like Vince was caught in all these recent sexual scandals. Linda was right there with them, busting unions. Like the point is, like even outside the WWE thing, because there's obviously nothing wrong with that, making money, having fun. But Linda McMahon is corrupt. Like she's a union buster, and
That's
she
true.
was with Vince McMahon during the sexual assault allegations and all that. So it doesn't.
Right.
I'm not shocked or surprised, but I think it is interesting.
Well, I think she's gonna clothesline the teachers union then, if that's the case.
Well, she's supposedly shutting down. She's been given the job of shutting down the Department of Education, right? So she's the assassin.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Which I admit I have very mixed feelings about.
Me too.
At the risk of being yelled at by maybe some more well-informed teachers on the left, like I find the Department of Education to be a great failure. You know what I mean? Well, and once again, I'm very
be wrong.
Maybe if someone can tell me some information what the Department of Education actually fucking does. But from my experience, the Department of Education serves a role in brainwashing kids and supporting United States propaganda. So I don't understand why people on the left is defending it. But maybe I'm missing something. I would love to talk to a teacher. I'm not saying my opinion is holier than now. That's just my thoughts on it. I won't fucking
Well, there's two parts of that, right? There's two parts, right? Because the teachers union is the one that they try to hustle for the teachers, obviously for contracts, and I do believe teachers should be paid more. It's a hard job, I get it, but the Department of Education itself, I don't know about how they've institutionalized the American propaganda of America is the greatest, bright, whatever. Because what are we teaching our children? It
was horrible. And the only reason I say this, and I am open to be taught more new information, but when I grew up in Missouri, as someone who grew up under the Department of Education, they told me that MLK was a radical, was the enemy. Like they told us that MLK was the good guy, Malcolm X was the bad guy. Like the point overall I'm making is they taught us bullshit. They taught us nonsense like how the indigenous people, they actually got along with the colonizers. If the indigenous people, if they just got along, they just chilled the fuck out. Why was they so upset that we live in here, man? Just let us live here, man. If they would just chill, we wouldn't have genocided them, man. That was their fault. That's what they taught us. Like it is ridiculous to believe, but I remember being at a young age, like, man, it's sad it went down like that. Instead of the United States genocided them, you know what I mean? But
that's not the federal department. That was your state of Missouri or your local town.
Which is fair enough.
I mean, the Federal Department of Education doesn't set any guidelines whatsoever for curriculum because all of that is controlled with local control, local and state control. So like in Kansas where they don't teach evolution, that's the state. The whole idea when Jimmy Carter created this Department of Education was to they were hoping to federalize. This is why liberals liked it and still do. They were hoping to federalize education so that shit like that wouldn't happen anymore, where it's like some states don't get taught like, I thought they had like evolution.
The whole No Child Left Behind thing. And thus lowering the bar for everybody.
Yeah, and then basically the main effect that I would say has been negative has been all the standardized testing, like teaching to the test. That's coming out of the feds, I
appreciate that context. I just don't.
Problem.
I appreciate the context, and that's exactly why I don't trust them. I think my solution to it would be to dismantle it and rebuild it with a market.
We kind of don't need it because the truth is we have state and local control of education, which we shouldn't. I'm against that. It should come from Washington. Like in most countries, it's federal. And it makes more sense. Like, let's say, a family moves in the middle of the school year. Well, if you move, like in France, from one town to another, you pretty much, the kid doesn't really lose, they don't really lose track. But like if you moved from one school district here to another school district, even, 2 towns away, it's going to be, you'll lose half a year easily,
Oh,